Hello, my name's Abigail Reynolds. I'm an artist and I'm talking to you from my home, which is in St Just in Penwith in Cornwall. And behind me, you can see some of the books that I use to make work. So I'm speaking about a work that I've made for the Harris Museum in Preston, which is a two-part work. It's a cabinet full of books and a photograph, a rare daguerreotype photograph, and also a film, which allows me to make connections between those objects and to think about their place in Preston and how they might talk to each other, how I feel that they connect and talk to each other. So just to start with the where I began with making this work, I went to the store in the Harris and immediately found many books, in fact, which really interested me. The first of these is Xion, which is an early score of a Purcell opera. It's the first edition, really. And what I really like about this book is that it has been damaged by water. So the edge of the book page has rotted away and it's been stripped off. And then somebody a long time ago has stuck a strip of paper to complete the page and then completed the score by hand so that it can still be used. So rather than throw away this damaged copy, somebody's hand mended it. And that must have been done a long time ago because the ink, because the way that it's been, the words have been written in, it feels like a very old script. So the original book was printed in 1691. And it still looks like a very old script. And then that ink has also run. So this immediately attracted me as something of a survivor, something which started with away from the hand as a printed thing and then had to be mended by the hand. It's just something about it that really spoke to me and touched me. The second group of books that I found were the very huge facsimiles of papyri belonging to the British Museum. I like them because when I opened the book of lithographs that are facsimile of a coffin, these lithographs were made in the 1870s, but they felt like the 1960s because the colours are so incredibly vibrant and fresh, feel very modern. And I love that sort of sandy beige colour reproduced with this acidic eau de Nil green. And something about that translation of a tomb carving into a lithographic book, and then its own survival through time. Again, I really enjoyed it. But these books then also, I was, when I first walked into the Harris, you can't help but be amazed by the void down the centre of the museum, which means that the middle of the museum is just a space. It's just a space for you to be. And there's something glorious and uplifting about this huge shaft of light beaming down from the top of the museum through 5 levels. And somehow this was so important for me and so unusual, this feeling of space, that I found it in the papyri. There's an image of a shaft of a blue void, and at the bottom of it is a figure, a dead body, and it just made me feel like being in the basement and this sort of void of space above me. So the film lets me talk about that. And another thing that I really like, an autobiographical thing, which is when I was in Preston researching this artwork and visiting the stacks, I like to run. I find running really creative moment, maybe because the blood's flowing around your brain really fast, or there's a lot of oxygen getting in, or maybe because when you run you're released from the feeling of thinking and you're allowed to, thoughts can come to you rather than you to go to the thought. So as I was running, I wanted to cross the river but I couldn't find the way across. And this became really interesting to me as a kind of metaphor, because in Greek mythology, which is something I'm very familiar with, the river is the river of death. It's Lethe. And Lethe has connotations of forgetting or memory, which Keats writes about, which is how I know about that. It's from reading Keats' poetry. My first degree was in literature, so I'm very attached to sort of literary ways of thinking, which are embedded in being British, really. We're a very bookish culture. And so the fact that I couldn't get across the river, get across to the other side, became really interesting to me, and that became a big part of the film. Another important object in the cabinet is a daguerreotype. So this is a small photograph with a mirror surface, and it's the earliest way of taking a photograph that we have. And now I think it's a really interesting time to think about photography, because now we're at a moment when we can photograph and film continually. So instead of it being a kind of rarefied choice to pick out something that's that feels super worthy of recording, it's just this endless slew of images, which means that perhaps it's changed our feeling of what a photograph is. So it seemed really interesting to me to take this daguerreotype as a starting point to think about the digital photograph, because as an artist you pay more close attention than perhaps anybody else to the materiality of representation, by which I mean how something is represented and why, and what means has been used to represent something, which is really rich territory, and why I became an artist, because you can represent something in words, but as a visual artist you have a huge range of ways to approach a subject, or think about the world, to use art as a way to think about the world.